Jane Fonda, you are back in the Emmy race this year for your role as Leona in The Newsroom, and this year we're seeing a nicer Leona, because last year when you chose an episode to submit to the judging panel, it had a speech that Leona gave where she was knocking heads there among the staff. And this year we see Leona standing up for the staff saying, I'm not going to let you resign over this Genoa scandal, and we see some great teamwork there. Talk about that episode.
Well, I was stoned. He comes back from a fundraiser that she went to because she wanted to meet Daniel Craig, and she was told he'd be there, but his plane had been canceled due to weather, and she's really upset. And so she comes, they've asked her to come to the executive dining room at the newsroom, and she's a little drunk and she's stoned. And I mean, it's quintessentially Aaron Sorkin taking a character like Leona from pissed off to touched to moved to angry. I mean, through the gamut of emotions. I tell you what, it was such an honor and a pleasure to speak his words. I love the way he created this character. And it was a huge surprise to me when I was making a movie called This Is Where I Leave You that's coming out in September. And when I got the script for that episode, I couldn't believe it. Because suddenly she's a pothead? What is this? But that's Aaron.
And then there's a scene right at the end of the episode where you and Sam Waters...
Then I talked about how, you know, I'm getting my pot from the I don't even remember which department in the newsroom it was, and telling them, I think they've got a stash. Maybe they keep it in Turks and Caicos. And I mean, it was just all these non sequiturs coming from all directions. Needless to say, it was really fun, except that it was one in the...
An established woman, a tycoon who owns a business, but who is also can be a firebrand liberal. This is a very complicated woman, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Really, really smart and complicated. I mean, most of us are much more complicated than most people write characters for, and that's what's so great about Aaron, is that he writes complicated characters, and yes, she is, and that's why it was so much fun playing her. I can't tell you what happens to her in the third season, because we've already shot it, and you know, we were all wondering, how is Aaron going to wrap it all up?
I mean, what's your process for getting that down on it?
I'm fortunate in that it's never been difficult for me to memorize dialogue. I just, although maybe Alan Poole, one of our producers, and the guy that directed a lot of them, and he directed the night that I had to say things like, why didn't Queen Elizabeth, you know, that thing, and the stuff about reuniting the Allman Brothers. It was 1 in the morning, and so I did forget my lines, but basically it's pretty easy for me to do it. I just, I do it over and over and over and over. My assistant, you know, tells me when I'm wrong. Oh, Jeff taught me this new app. It's called Rehearsal, that I can put on my iPad, and you put your scenes on there, and then you can yellow all the lines that are yours, and then once you've kind of learned them, you can press a button, and all of your dialogue goes black. So, and then also you can record the other people's dialogue, leaving yours blank, so you can play it in the car if you're driving, and you know that on the movie I just finished in Italy. That was a pretty good thing to learn. Basically, it's pretty easy for me. And at the very beginning, at the very first table read, Jeff Daniels, who's my friend, said to me, word, every comma, every period, forwards and backwards, awake and in your sleep. And I did, and so I was always very haughty. I would come to the first room.
Now, Corey in our chat room says, you know, Aaron gives you great one-liners on the show, and he wants to know what is your favorite from the show. I'll give you mine, and that was the end of your speech when Sam Waterston says to you, "But Leona, we've lost the trust of the public," and you slapped your fist out and said, "Get it back."
Get it back. And they can, you know, they can relate it back to you if it's a really good line or character or something. So I got a kick out of that because I had never done a television show before. So the fact that my first scene is repeated to me by a salesgirl, I can get much better than that.
Well, It's and on the subject of TV, I mean, everyone's very excited about this new Netflix show. I guess maybe a newer friend, Sam Waterston
Several
from the Newsroom.
old friends. Martin Sheen plays my husband,
Yeah.
and Sam Waterston plays Lily's husband. So he went from working for me to stealing my husband.
Well, I was just going to ask you what the premise of this show is. So Marta Kaufman, who worked on Friends, was one of the people that helped create this. So
I love that because I like to be able to see them all at once.
And you're producing too, right? Which you've done often in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what's lovely is Lily and Jeff Daniels, they were part of your recent AFI tribute, weren't they? They both were there. And we're an award site, and we just if we could just take you back to that evening, which I know was very special for you. And what I love about it, it's sort of full circle, because you were there when your father got the tribute in 1978. You'd, I guess, hosted the year before.
It gives a Lifetime Achievement Award to somebody really special, and I never, ever expected that I would get one. I left the business for 15 years. And when they called me to tell me, I burst into tears. I was so surprised and so thrilled. It's a big deal. Next to the Oscars, it's the biggest happen to an actor in terms of awards. And it meant so much to me that so many friends showed up and were great and funny and moving. In my opinion, my son, Troy Garrity, who was also an actor, stole the show. He was just amazing, not only moving, but very, very funny. But I don't know, it was wonderful. And what it happens to you individually as you approach this event, because, you have to be interviewed about your life in films and, thinking about what you're going to say, it forces you to do a lot of reflecting, and that's always good, And what it showed me was that I asked enough questions. Betty Davis asked me to give her the award, Barbara Stanwyck, but I never asked them enough questions, and so I'm trying to make up for it now. I kind of hound people and ask them questions.
Let's talk about your father a bit, because that was a big deal in the tribute. They showed a clip of when he had accepted the AFI, and he mentions you in that clip, and how they framed that up was so poignant. The presentation.
In my AFI evening.
Yes. Right.
Well, I told a story that I've told many times, and I'm not going to repeat it now. But it's, I want us to be friends. And he says to me, "Boy, thinking about the will, are you?" And and I keep trying to tell him, "No, I want us to be friends." And I waited until his close-up to do something that I hadn't done before, and he never liked to do anything that wasn't rehearsed. I reached out and touched his arm in his close-up.
For on Golden Pond, when you took his Oscar and said, "Dad, me and the kids will be right over." Where is that Oscar today? Who has that?
Well, his widow, my stepmother, has the Oscar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, and of course, his co-star on Golden Pond was Katharine Hepburn. I remember at the time that you made the film with her, that the way that I thought that she spoke to you with a little bit of mentorship, that she referenced, I think, Ethel Barrymore, that she'd sort of felt like Ethel Barrymore had been a mentor to you, and hadn't she given you a little bit of guidance, Katharine Hepburn, maybe during the making of it? Didn't she give you a little bit of acting advice?
Or the things that she told me. In terms of acting advice, well, the first time she invited me over to her house, she pulled out the scripts and she read my part. She gave me line readings. And I was so scared of her that I didn't say, like, this is totally inappropriate. But we had a few teas at her house, and yes, she talked about Ethel Barrymore and Constance Cummings, but she told me a lot more than that. My memoirs have a whole chapter dedicated to On Golden Pond, and in it I tell all the stories.
Over this 50 years of being in the business, Jane, you've seen cable TV. I mean, I'm talking about show business in general. Cable TV come into it. The internet, mobile phones, YouTube.
I've seen television come into it. Forget about it.
Yeah,
I remember the beginning of television in the studios, because I was under contract then, and they were so scared of television. They thought it was going to destroy movies, and of course it's changed balance of power in movies, and because of cable now, more and more actors, including major movie stars and Oscar-winning actors, are doing television because you follow the words, you follow the good writing, and a lot of the best writing is on cable television.
Well, a few decades ago, you bravely entered into producing for television with The Doll Maker, and that's where you won your Emmy, of course.
But you know, that started off as a feature film.
Oh.
And it wasn't until I saw Roots, that multi-part, that miniseries, that really changed everything for me. When I saw something as important as Roots on television and realized that more people were going to watch that somewhat challenging miniseries than have seen all my movies combined, I thought, well, this movie, The Doll Maker, which means so much to me, I think I'll do it on television. More people will see it.
Yeah, and it's you mentioned your memoir, which is a wonderful book, and your third act. You talked about it being in your third act, and you mentioned the film you made in Italy with Paolo Sorrentino, who won the Oscar for Great Beauty this year, and you've got this other film coming out, This Is Where I Leave You, your Netflix series. I mean, what else can we look forward to? I mean, are there other scripts piled up on your desk that you're hoping to get to?
I don't know. I have no idea what they're. I mean, I'm working on some things. I'm developing some things, but you know, who knows when you're my age what's going to happen? I don't know. I hope this series is good.
I think redefining your age.
If you want to win an Emmy for it, Paul and I have advice because we're experts at this. Tell Marta to write you a drunk scene. a speech. You know, Jeff Daniels won last year. He pulled off an upset for Best Actor at the Emmys because he had that great Aaron Sorkin speech. Yeah. And so the great thing about you this year is that you have a speech. And I think last year you had a negative speech because you were yelling at the staff. Now you're cheering them on. So voters love that. But if this doesn't work out and you've got control as producer of Grace and Frankie, then what you do is what else does she load up there, Paul, in that episode?
Well, they have to.
Yeah.
They still have to like you. They have to really like you. There has to be some.
No, okay. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Well, we'll sign off here. Good luck to you very much at the Emmys, and thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Bye bye.